The sun was warm on my skin as I stepped into the private swimming pool, the water shimmering under the late afternoon light. I had been looking forward to this moment all week, a few hours to myself, away from the noise, the stress, and the world outside. The pool was quiet, surrounded by tall hedges and the faint scent of flowers drifting in from the garden. I let myself sink slowly into the water, feeling the coolness embrace me, washing away the tension in my shoulders. For a moment, I allowed my thoughts to drift freely, imagining nothing more than the gentle ripples of the water and the soft caress of the breeze on my face. I closed my eyes, enjoying the solitude, when I suddenly felt the sound of footsteps along the edge of the pool. At first, I ignored it, assuming it was just someone walking nearby, but then a shadow fell over the water, and I opened my eyes. There he was, a tall African man, with a calm confidence in the way he moved. His skin glistened under the sun, droplets of water rolling down his broad shoulders as he stepped closer. He smiled, a hint of mischief in his eyes, and my heart skipped a beat. I wasn't expecting company, let alone someone who carried such a striking presence. He didn't hesitate. Without asking, he stepped into the water, causing small waves that brushed against me. I tensed, unsure of how to react. The intrusion felt sudden, but there was something oddly magnetic about him. He seemed completely at ease, his gaze steady yet playful, as if he knew exactly the effect he had. I tried to focus on the water, pretending to be calm, but I could feel my pulse quickening with every small movement he made. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" he said, his voice smooth and deep. There was no aggression, only a light teasing tone that made me glance at him, half annoyed and half curious. I nodded, managing a small smile. "Yes, perfect," I replied, trying to sound casual even as my mind raced. There was an unfamiliar tension in the air, something electric, unspoken, and undeniable. He swam closer, and I instinctively moved back, though there wasn't really any room to escape in the pool. I could see the playful glint in his eyes as he mirrored my movements, each stroke calculated, teasing, almost like a game. My body reacted before my mind could catch up. I felt a strange combination of excitement and apprehension, the kind that comes when you're drawn to someone despite knowing you shouldn't be. Then, without warning, he pushed me gently but firmly, and I plunged under the water, gasping as it filled my ears. My heart raced in both shock and exhilaration. I surfaced quickly, sputtering, and looked at him, incredulous. He laughed, a deep, warm sound that seemed to wrap around me. "You should smile more," he said, swimming toward me with effortless grace. "It suits you." I blinked, trying to regain my composure, but it was impossible to ignore the tension now. He was closer, too close, and every movement he made sent ripples through the water, brushing against me in ways that made me acutely aware of my own body. Part of me wanted to retreat, to regain the safe distance I had when I entered the pool, but another part, one I wasn't used to acknowledging, wanted to stay, to see where this playful encounter might lead. We circled each other in the water, a slow, teasing dance that felt both innocent and dangerously intimate. Each glance, each small gesture, carried a weight I couldn't quite name. My thoughts drifted to the life I had outside this pool, the rules, the expectations, the boundaries I was supposed to maintain, and yet, in this private world, none of that seemed to matter. For the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of reckless freedom. The sun began to dip lower, casting long shadows across the pool. I felt a shiver, not from the water, but from the thrill of the unexpected. He watched me with a gaze that seemed to read my thoughts, as if he knew the exact mixture of fear, curiosity, and excitement running through me. And just when I thought I had a moment to steady myself, he grinned and, before I could react, pushed me into the water again, laughing at my startled gasp. As I emerged, coughing and laughing in equal measure, I realized something undeniable. I had never expected a day at the pool to feel like this, and I wasn't sure I wanted it to end. I wiped the water from my face, still catching my breath, and found him leaning casually against the pool's edge, smiling as though nothing had happened. There was something infuriatingly charming about him, the kind of charm that made it impossible to be angry, even when he was teasing me relentlessly. My heart still thumped from the sudden push, but I couldn't deny the flutter of excitement that ran through me whenever our eyes met. He swam closer, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence between us was heavy with unspoken words and subtle tension, like the calm before a storm. I could feel the warmth of the sun on my back, the cool water surrounding us, and the electricity in the space between our bodies. It was intoxicating, and I realized, with a mixture of guilt and curiosity, that I was drawn to him in a way I hadn't expected. "Don't look so serious," he said, his voice low and teasing, yet somehow intimate. "You're smiling a little now. That's better." I couldn't help but let a small, nervous laugh escape. There was an ease about him that made it difficult to think clearly, to maintain the boundaries I had always adhered to. My mind was a whirl of emotions, confusion, excitement, and a strange sense of forbidden thrill. We began to talk, our conversation light at first, casual stories about work, life, and trivial things that shouldn't matter, yet each word carried a subtle weight. He had a way of listening that made me feel as though I were the only person in the world, and I found myself sharing thoughts I had never spoken aloud. There was something almost magnetic about him, a pull I couldn't resist, even though I knew it was dangerous. As the minutes passed, I felt my initial shock fade, replaced by a growing curiosity. His presence was overwhelming, yet comforting in a way I didn't fully understand. I noticed the small details, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the strength in his arms as he moved through the water, and the playful confidence in every gesture. I tried to convince myself that it was just his charm, nothing more, but deep down I knew it was more than that. The pool became a stage for a quiet dance, a game of proximity and tension. We splashed each other lightly, laughed, and exchanged playful glances, each moment pulling me further into his orbit. I could feel a tension building, subtle but undeniable, a mix of attraction and something forbidden. My thoughts flickered to my own life outside this moment, the commitments, the rules, the expectations, and yet, in this private space, none of that seemed to matter. He reached out suddenly, his hand brushing mine in the water. It was a fleeting touch, but it sent a shiver down my spine. My breath caught, and I pulled back slightly, unsure how to react. His grin widened, sensing the effect he had on me. "Don't be so tense," he murmured, his tone both playful and intimate. "Just enjoy the moment." I wanted to argue, to remind myself of the boundaries I was supposed to maintain, but the words never came. Instead, I found myself leaning closer, drawn to the warmth of his presence. There was an unspoken understanding between us, a recognition of the spark that had ignited from the very first playful push. Every glance, every small gesture, seemed to carry more weight than it should, and I felt both exhilarated and terrified by it. Time seemed to stretch in the pool, each second lingering longer than the last. I realized I was experiencing a rush I hadn't known I was capable of, an intoxicating mix of desire, curiosity, and the thrill of doing something I wasn't supposed to. My mind raced with questions I didn't want answered, feelings I didn't fully understand, and a pull toward him that I couldn't resist. Finally, he leaned back, floating on the water with effortless grace, and looked at me with a gaze that was both teasing and knowing. I knew, at that moment, that whatever this was between us, whatever spark had been lit, it was dangerous, forbidden, and utterly consuming. And yet, I couldn't deny that I wanted more, even if I didn't fully understand why. The water glistened around us as the sun dipped lower, casting long, golden streaks across the pool. I could feel the warmth of the evening sun on my back, but it wasn't just the heat that made my skin tingle, it was the closeness of him, the way his presence seemed to command every corner of the space, every thought in my mind. We floated in the water, our movements slow, almost synchronized, each aware of the other in ways that went beyond casual interaction. He splashed gently at me, playful and teasing, and I couldn't help but laugh, my earlier apprehension melting into something more dangerous, more intoxicating. Every glance, every smile, every brush of water between us carried a tension I couldn't ignore. My heart raced, my mind oscillating between guilt and desire, between the life I knew and the thrill of this forbidden connection. He wasn't just a stranger in the pool anymore, he had become an undeniable presence in my thoughts, a temptation I wasn't prepared to resist. His hand brushed mine again, this time lingering longer, a deliberate touch that sent a shiver through me. I tried to pull away, telling myself this was wrong, that the consequences of indulging in this moment could be complicated, even painful. But the pull was irresistible. I felt drawn toward him, the tension between us thick and electric. My breath caught when his eyes met mine, holding a silent understanding, a challenge, and an invitation all at once. We began to drift closer, drawn together by a force I didn't have the courage to name. The playful teasing had evolved into something heavier, something intimate yet unspoken. I felt my pulse quicken as the realization hit me that I was teetering on the edge of desire, flirting with a line I had never dared to approach before. It was thrilling and terrifying at the same time, and I couldn't tell whether I wanted to step back or surrender completely to the moment. He laughed softly, sensing my hesitation, and the sound wrapped around me, pulling me deeper into the spell of this encounter. The water swirled around us as we moved closer, each splash and ripple amplifying the connection between us. I could feel the warmth of his body near mine, the subtle brush of skin against skin, and the tension between us became almost unbearable. Every instinct screamed caution, yet every emotion urged me to stay, to explore, to surrender to the thrill of this forbidden attraction. Time seemed to slow, each moment stretching into an eternity. The playful splashes became silent glances, the teasing smiles became subtle, knowing gestures, and the space between us was charged with an energy I could no longer ignore. I realized, with a mix of fear and excitement, that this was no longer just a casual encounter. There was a connection here, intense, undeniable, and dangerously consuming. And then, as we floated side by side, his hand reached for mine again, this time with a gentle insistence. I didn't pull away. Instead, I let our fingers intertwine, a small act that carried more weight than words could convey. It was intimate without being explicit, a recognition of the forbidden bond that had formed between us in these few hours. My heart raced as I looked into his eyes, seeing the same mixture of desire, curiosity, and thrill mirrored back at me. Eventually, the moment passed, though neither of us moved apart immediately. I felt a mix of relief, guilt, and a strange exhilaration. The sun had begun to set completely, casting a soft twilight glow over the pool. I knew that I couldn't stay in this suspended world forever. Reality would intrude, bringing with it questions, consequences, and choices I wasn't ready to face. And yet, as I glanced at him, a small, knowing smile crossed his lips, hinting that this encounter was far from over. As I climbed out of the pool, water dripping down my skin, I felt a strange sense of longing. My mind replayed every touch, every glance, every moment of playful tension. I was exhilarated, conflicted, and undeniably drawn to him. The day at the pool had changed something within me, ignited a spark I couldn't extinguish, and left me craving more, even if I didn't know what the next encounter would bring. I left the pool with my heart racing, a lingering smile on my face, and a thrilling sense of anticipation for the story that had only just begun.